The big wireless companies sold you an outdated plan tied to long-term contracts and mystery fees. Simple Mobile's different. You get a lightning-fast 4G LTE nationwide network with no contract, ever. And keep the phone and number you love. Just text the word BYOP to 611-611 to see if your phone is compatible. Simple Mobile. Out with the old, in with the simple.
Standard text message and data rates may apply based on your mobile phone service. Please refer always to the privacy policy at simplemobile.com/privacypolicy and the terms and conditions at simplemobile.com/terms and conditions.
Bernie and Sid in the morning. The new show, Mischief and More. 77 WABC and the WABC radio app.
I do love this song. You know what it is? Welcome to Sunday. It's Meet the Press. Chuck Todd does a terrific job every single weekday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on MSNBC on MTP Daily, and then hosts and moderates the most important show on television every Sunday morning on NBC, Meet the Press. And we are incredibly fortunate to get Chuck on here and every Friday morning. The great Chuck Todd. Chuck, welcome back, buddy. How are you?
I'm good. Good morning. Actual decent day here in New York. I'm in your lovely city.
Oh, you should have been here.
What are you doing here today?
I have to come up here a lot, man. We get debate prep, all sorts of stuff, man. I'm going to be up here a lot in the next couple of weeks.
Wow.
Oh, good. Well, while you're doing that debate prep, which is coming up in a couple of weeks, and of course you are one of the moderators, which is great. Should sit down with our mayor and find out if
he made it.
You did already?
He made it.
Yeah,
I know that. I know that. Listen.
No, I did. Hey, he was. Yesterday when we announced it, I wanted to have cameras in the campaign. Like it was like Selection Sunday. And you have. And now, at one point, I wanted to say, Bill de Blasio, Murray State gets in.
Well,
he was the Murray State of this field.
No, we can't figure it out. I mean, we keep hearing this news that he's getting 0%, and in fact, sometimes -% in these polls. So I got to ask you, Chuck, what is the criteria for these 20 people to make the debate?
Here was the criteria. You had to reach 1% in at least 3 different, and it was a group of polls, either in one of the early states, Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, or Nevada, or in a national poll, or you'd approve you had 65,000 individual donors. And I believe de Blasio somehow made the polling threshold. But on one hand, the mayor of New York City should be, where you have, I think, 9% of the country's population, you would hope he could find. In most of these polls, 1% is 3 people. All you're looking for is 3 people. The criteria isn't that difficult. And I think for a first debate, that's fair. The threshold for a first debate should be low, and it should go up each time. So I sort of don't have a lot of sympathy for folks that didn't make this. This wasn't that hard.
I heard that there was some extra criteria as well in the event of a tie, like how many times you visited Mumia Abu Jamal or Fidel Castro's Cuba.
There is a few of these sidebar deals. I'm not sure. It's like any agreement. You never know which one is in there. They actually did have some tiebreakers, and it would have been, if you only made 3 polls, like Eric Swalwell, if you want to know, I think he was the 20th candidate. All right, he was the last guy to make it, and he hit it on the nose, 1%,
wow.
3 times. He hit it on the nose. So there were tiebreakers had somebody else hit 3% on the nose and, had more individual donors, they actually could have bumped Swalwell from that spot. That was the way they were going to do tiebreakers.
You talk about Murray State, and they were a team, of course, that did more than we thought they would, or even George Mason years ago for Larinaga. So when you handicap this field, right, I mean, people, they expect to hear from Biden and Sanders and Kamala and Liz and all that stuff, but there's going to be 5 or 6 of those folks at the very bottom who barely made it in that may turn out to be the Carly Fiorina, the Ben Carson of the early going for your debates. Who do you see as that? Who was the dark horse that can all of a sudden arrive on the scene after this first debate?
I think the one guy that qualifies for that is this Andrew Yang guy, right? The reason I say he's the one to me that has the best shot at sort of the breakout, it's because no one knows who he is. And yet he made the stage. Oh, and by the way, he has a weird platform that calls for everybody getting a universal monthly income.
Yeah. UBI.
Right. It's one of those things where he could, because it's who the hell is this guy? guess who led the Google searches on debate night? A lot of people looking up Andrew. You know what I mean? You could picture of all the things, and he's a smart guy. He's quick on his feet. He might be able to perform well in this. That's in what you're describing. He fits that criteria to a T. Oddball issue, extraordinarily intelligent, quick on his feet.
Plus, a businessman in the private sector, as opposed to a professional politician.
Right, and he'll come across as sort of, there's that businessman halo effect all the time. First time you meet somebody running for office and you find out, they've never run for office before. Just what you did, Bernie. Oh, how about that? You're not a professional politician. It will make you listen 1 second longer to him. Maybe you'll end up not liking him, but that is an effect that you get when you're not a professional pol.
Absolutely right. Chuck Todd from Meet the Press on the Bernie and Sid Show. Chuck, I have to ask you, of course, about this Trump comment to George Stephanopoulos. The democracy is ending, some of the Democrats say. It's the end of the world. The question is this, Chuck, for me anyway, is that does this force the Democrats or the left anyway, some of the people in the media, to look now finally at the dossier, the fake Russian dossier, which was gotten by a foreign agent, a British agent, and again, the Russians, they're foreign as well, and paid for by the Hillary Clinton campaign and the Democrats, and then subsequently used when they knew it was not really, when it wasn't credible. They used it to spy on the Trump campaign.
Well, the last part of this we don't know, Bernie, in fairness. We don't know how much they used of it, and we don't know how accurate or inaccurate it is as far as the FBI is concerned. That said, at least Steele turned his work over to the FBI. Here's the larger issue. I'm not surprised by what President Trump said to Stephanopoulos. He is somebody, and you guys know him as well as I do, whether he is never going to cop to something that a whole bunch of people are telling him he's got to cop to. And it doesn't matter if it's a small issue or a big issue, right? This is the sort of, I think, the brick walls that Democrats run into sometimes. They sit there and say, I can't believe people are outraged. And I think Republicans are saying, you realize that sometimes Trump's just being Trump. And he's just trolling you guys in the media. He doesn't mean that stuff the way you think he does. But calibrating Trump's comments is something that many of my colleagues in the media can't do anymore, and obviously lawmakers can't. That said, just pass this bill. This should be a no-brainer bill. Nobody's against it. Just pass this bill, put it all in there. Criminalize the Steele thing, criminalize the Junior thing. I don't see why you don't put it all in there and say, look, this isn't how we conduct business, period.
Hey, Chuck, tell me, how will you cover the Sarah Sanders exit? She did intimate months ago that this was going to happen. I'm not sure why people were so shocked yesterday, but she did say now, I guess, it's coming up. Her exit is right around the corner. How will you describe her stay?
I would say she was resilient, a survivor. I think a lot of us didn't think she was going to survive Trump world at first. He wasn't a big fan at first, if you recall. He would micromanage her, and over time she got into his good graces while sort of getting out of the media's good graces, which perhaps is why she got into the president's good graces. Look, first of all, I saw, I think it was Cavuto or somebody implying that, this happened on the same day as Stephanopoulos. She's getting scapegoated for that. That couldn't be further from the truth. You know why it's the end of the month? Our kids go to the same elementary school, or did. My kid's not in that elementary school anymore. Guess what happens at the end of this month? The school year ends. Right. So, of course, this is when she's ending. I mean, I think, she'd been trying to leave about a year ago when a lot of people left. She stayed about a year longer than most people had said she was going to. I think some of it has to do with she's going to go home to Arkansas and run for governor. I mean, that is the hot rumor. I have some friends and sources in Little Rock, and that is the hot rumor. I think they'd like to get her to run for something in 2020, but there's no open Republican seat. So the governorship appears to be her best bet in 2022.
No doubt. Chuck Todd again from Meet the Press. Chuck, back to the campaign for the nomination for the Democratic primary for president. Joe Biden continues to lead in the polls. He's had a couple of flip-flops over the past couple of weeks. A lot of people saying that, well, maybe it's going to hurt him, maybe it's not. What do you think about all that?
I think it depends on how many he does. I think, look, I see what he did on the Hyde Amendment and the abortion thing. I think if this were next year, that would have been pretty harmful to him because I think it would have spooked some middle-of-the-road voters. This is one of those, if you're going to capitulate on a couple things, do it early. I remember when Mitt Romney needed to clean up his record for conservatives on abortion. He did it in an op-ed a year and a half before he ran for president the first time. So if you're going to do those things, because you have to sort of fix yourself with the base, you better do it early in the process. The danger for Biden is if you have too many of these things.
Right.
And all of a sudden you get to see this guy is just getting chipped away and then it's suddenly death by 1,000 cuts.
Well, what
I think happened to Hillary Clinton in 2015 when the left sort of wrestled her to the ground and she kept caving in.
He is slumping a bit in California. We know that. Liz Warren coming on. But I will ask you this. On a positive note for Joe Biden, since he's entered this race, he's been in the lead, and he's had some very, very big leads early on. It's a very simple question. I don't want to talk about all the gaffes and his mistakes. Mm-hmm. Why do so many people in this country think that Joe Biden is the right choice for president?
I just think he's familiar and comfortable. I think, and I say this not as either a positive or a negative, I think he's viewed as the Gerald Ford of the Democratic Party. You talk to people in the Republican Party, and Gerald Ford was one of these guys you thought, you know what, he's a do-no-harm guy. He always wants to do the right thing. His instincts may not be always right, but he's a good person, and he's safe. And I think that that's what Biden is. I think that's the problem Biden has, right? He can't just be the safe guy. He's got to excite people at some point. That said, if it's Elizabeth Warren, that's the person that's chasing him for this nomination, he's going to win this nomination. If it's Kamala Harris, it's going to be a much harder slog. So who is the chief challenger to Biden, I think, will dictate a lot of how good of a campaign he has to run in the primary.
And that's why, Chuck Todd, you're a pivotal figure in this campaign with these debates coming up on June 25th and 26th on NBC and MSNBC. Chuck Todd from Meet the Press. Listen, thank you very much for your appearance on the Bernie and Sid Show, Chuck.
Always good to talk to you, boys. Thanks,
you too, Chuck. Thank you, buddy. Great job. The great Chuck Todd. We'll take a short break when we get back. Shrewsbury Bicycle Blitz coming up. The NBA champs. Not even in this country. Toronto and Jeremy Lin. Linsanity has a ring, and it ain't from the Knicks. We'll come back with the Blitz right after this.
Bernie and Sid in the morning, 77 WABC.